Welcome back to Radio Taiwan International. I'm your host, Michelle Chang, and you're listening to Geek Out. What's your cup of tea? Tickles your fancy or floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. Today, in the studio, we have a returning guest, Aziz.
Hi.
So, what are we geeking out about today?
Well, I think we can speak as much or as little about coral. Corals around Taiwan, around the world. And I think we can also maybe touch upon cycling if we've got time as well.
Because none of us are just single-faceted.
Exactly. And cycling and corals have a lot in common. So
Yes, indeed. So tell us about yourself. Well, you're in Taiwan, obviously, because I'm looking at you. What do you do here?
I'm just here for 1 more month,
Okay.
but I have been here for a long time, around 7 years. I'm currently a postdoc at Taida, National Taiwan University,
Okay.
and I focus on recovery and resilience of coral reefs around Taiwan.
That is something listeners have heard of in the past because I've been filling in on my scuba journey, right? My scuba discovery journey. But that is near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
Being an aquarium nerd. So that's how I first got the glimpse of what is in the ocean is by looking at aquariums, right?
Yeah.
Looking at fish tanks. The way that it started was I won that one goldfish
Yeah.
at the county
The
fair.
fair or something like that.
And then
yeah.
you take home the fish and it doesn't live very long. But you get bit by the bug.
Yes.
And then that snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. And
Yeah.
eventually I found myself into both, densely planted aquaria and
Yeah.
reef aquariums. And then discovering that a lot of the hobby is actually not very moral, ethical.
Yeah. You mean the kind of whole aquarium trade?
The aquarium
as a
trade
whole, yeah.
sometimes can be a little bit shady. It depends on where things are being collected from, both
Yep.
fish and coral. So it's
And your motivation for doing it as well
Yeah,
is
exactly.
kind of important as well.
Absolutely. So then learning about all this stuff, I started snorkeling and then seeing everybody in the wild and then returning to the same snorkeling points
Yep.
year after year. You start to see changes
Definitely.
due to human impact and climate change and, all of the above. And it does also make you calibrate yourself as a hobbyist to try to source from aquaculture, mariculture grown coral. And now there are more and more selections of tank-raised fish,
Okay.
which wasn't quite possible like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So that's my foray into it.
Yeah.
But how did you start?
I didn't start through the aquarium stuff. I wouldn't say I'm so passionate about that, but I'm very wary about it. I don't really go to aquariums. It's not a boycott or anything like that. Just, I work in a big aquarium.
Exactly.
So,
You work in the ocean.
Yeah. So how I got into it was through diving, like straight away, kind of when I was very young. I was in Egypt. That's kind of our closest tropical coral reef to the UK.
Yep.
I just loved it as soon as I wasn't diving at the time, I was snorkeling, so I just put my head underwater with my mum and amazing. So I was kind of like taken in by it through that way, and the reefs in the Red Sea are amazing. But to do it as a job, I kind of wasn't interested until my dad kind of told me, like, get a proper job, because I wanted just to be a diving instructor.
Yeah.
Because I love diving so much. But I'm kind of glad I went into the academic side of it, because there's one half of the kind of amazingness about coral reefs is seeing them, but the other half is understanding. And
Yes.
that's kind of like more what I'm interested in now, about understanding how we got to this point, understanding why certain coral reefs look the way they do, why they're
Right.
made up of certain species, etc.
And the interaction between species.
Exactly,
right.
that's ecology, interaction between organism and environment. Why do we have certain environments around Taiwan, especially? And you can usually trace it back to some big type of disturbance event or something like that, including humans.
Yes.
As well.
Although, Taiwan is known for having typhoons. Prior to recent years, we've been hit
zero.
by, right? It's been, guys, listeners, if you're not familiar with what a typhoon is, it's a hurricane. Although hurricanes are Atlantic and typhoons are considered Pacific, they're really bad tropical storms.
Yes.
Cyclone winds, that kind of thing. So Taiwan is known to have maybe 3-4 of them every year of varying intensity. Although in recent years, we've had none.
Zero,
or like the one that kind of peters out on its way over here.
Yeah.
Which has been really weird for me.
Yes. When I first arrived in 2016, I think within the first 2 weeks, we had 2 super typhoons.
Exactly.
And I thought, what have I done? Because it was terrifying. It was terrifying.
Where were you coming from? You were coming from England?
I came
Okay.
from England. So from Scotland actually. But where we don't have typhoons.
No.
We have terrible weather, but not like that. And I remember during it there was like an earthquake as well, and I thought, what am I doing here? But in terms of the lack of typhoons over the last 4 or 5 years, in 2020 we had a huge bleaching event across the south and all around Taiwan, but especially in the south, where the corals bleached because there was a increase in temperature. So the typhoons have an active role in this. They reduce the temperature, so we definitely need them. And this year we got a lot.
Right.
One on my birthday, actually, which was got a typhoon holiday on my birthday.
There you go. I mean, they sent you a gift. So listeners, if you're not aware of a lot of the ocean, what is the word? It's just the behavior. Frequently, if there is some kind of storm or inclement weather, the surface of the ocean to about, how deep would you say in a super typhoon? Maybe
40 meters. It can go down.
The top 40 meters can get pretty turbulent.
Yes.
Which means the coral reef can be physically damaged by physical movement of water and other things.
Yeah.
But a lot of that water is swished around, and that's why we're saying that it brings in cooler temperatures.
Yes.
And it helps.
A lot of the time, it's kind of key what you just mentioned. It is the other things in the water that cause damage to the coral reef. So 2009, like the Taiwan's most deadliest typhoon, Marika.
Yeah.
That caused a lot of landslides, so all that debris went into the ocean and just smashed against the reef. So it wasn't exactly the typhoon, a mixture of water. It was like the things in the trees, the rocks, bricks, that totally destroyed the environment. So it was back to square one for that. Luckily, that was kind of good for our research, and I would go as far to say it is good for the reef as well, because it frees up available space for new recruits to come in, new babies to come in.
Yep.
But obviously, for the first few years, it looks awful. It looks terrible.
Oh yes.
And on land, it is a terrible thing. Yeah.
If you guys are interested in more of that side of Aziz's profession, Sharon Lynn's That's Debatable and Come Along. Actually, there's 2 episodes with that feature Aziz, where he talks more in detail about coral and his work.
Yeah.
I needed to have you on here because Sharon's like, you're so into aquariums and coral and that kind of thing, and you just started scuba diving. You need to talk to Aziz.
So you just went to Thailand, right?
I just went to Thailand, exactly. I was just going to get into that.
On a liveaboard.
Right? On a liveaboard.
Very jealous.
Liveaboards, I was a little scared because I do get a wee bit seasick.
Okay.
I'm not a really bad case, but I have gotten seasick, and to imagine being seasick for 5 days would be absolute misery. Yeah. So I went there armed with everything, all seasick remedies possible: ginger candy, pressure point bands, those little scopolamine patches, and herbal scent, whatever, and then of course medication. But turns out it was fine.
Yeah.
And I got to dive in one of in the Andaman Sea at a few locations around the Similan Islands up to Richelieu Rock. And it was eye-opening. I think I'm hooked. It's just forever.
Yeah, it's very difficult not to. Yeah, for sure.
But just looking at the ecology, man.
I think what part of a liveaboard is, basically that, like living on a boat for 4 or 5 days, and that's kind of all that you know and see. Did you have barbecues on the boat?
Oh, we did.
Yes,
it was
amazing,
food on the boat, and really, you get into the cycle of it. In the beginning, it's a little bit very different.
Yeah,
not a little bit, very different from what you're used to. But they come around ringing the bell, and then you go for a dive briefing, slam a cup of coffee, and then you go dive.
Yeah,
you get out of the water. There's breakfast. And then you sit around, take a break, download some photos or whatever. Then you dive.
Yes.
And then you come out, lunch is ready. And then you sit around, take a nap, have a sun, then you dive.
That is not how it works in Taiwan on a research vessel. No. I can tell you that.
Okay, so no.
No.
Really? Okay, so I'm curious. What do you do on a research vessel? It's not a liveaboard.
So a lot of our dives, like if we're on a research vessel, I wouldn't say the boat is in the best condition, for sure. It's definitely not a liveaboard. But we're waking up extremely early. Do we have breakfast? Maybe we have breakfast on the boat. Can't remember. But we are diving, and when we're diving, we're not doing it for fun. We're usually taking a lot of equipment with us. So everything's very heavy, and when you're down there, you don't even really notice your environment because you're just focused on the work
task
that
at
you're
hand,
doing.
right.
And then we usually have maybe a 30-minute break, come back up in all types of weather, and then we go down again, finish or start a new project, something like that. But it's usually cold, wet,
Miserable.
draining, miserable. 3 or 4 dives a day for sometimes 2 weeks, and then we've got to do it at night as well for night diving to
Right.
look at spawning of corals. But one thing which I kind of tried not to do is kind of lose the passion for diving. I kind of started to do that a little bit.
Well, if you do something repeatedly over
Yeah.
and over again, that can happen.
Yes, but every once in a while, we do a fun dive, and we don't really have much to worry about, and you get that kind of passion back, and
Yeah.
you start to realize, oh, it's amazing.
It's magical.
Oh, it's magical,
And
for
it's
sure,
pretty
yeah.
much the closest thing human beings can come to flying.
Yeah, I always love, especially in Lanyu, because Lanyu's topography is really unique. So it has kind of a very small reef flat, and then it just drops straight
it's a drop
down
off, nice.
to 50, 60 meters. And just jumping off the edge and just going down is amazing. It is the closest probably we can get other than going into space, but that's a whole
Right.
hassle.
Oh, yeah, we can't get there quite yet.
Yes, so I would definitely push a lot of people to go and at least try diving and things. It's very
Yeah.
freeing.
I mean, there are programs, if you go with a reputable dive shop, they usually offer Discover dives.
Yeah.
So without any certification or training,
Yeah.
they'll take you out for basically something pretty easy. And they, of course, will run you through some safety procedures
Yes.
to do. And you have a dive master with you watching you like a hawk. So it is fairly safe. So you can kind of get a taste for what the hobby is.
Yes. The best thing to do, is to get your license so that you can, go around Taiwan, but also other places like you have around the world, and you can really see the difference, even between Taiwan and Thailand,
Indeed.
Taiwan and the Red Sea and things like that.
Yeah, different environments are very. It's just an hour apart from each other or
Yeah.
less, and you see drastically different
Oh,
coral,
huge.
different animals, right?
Yes.
So many different worlds to look at, and they're also alien from what
Yeah.
we experience on dry land.
I would say that the deeper you go, the more Avatar it becomes.
Right. Oh, that's great.
And
Exactly.
especially if you go at night and you have a fluorescent light, it's amazing, because a lot of the corals have fluorescent in them, so you can light them up, and there's oranges that you wouldn't
Oh,
see during
yeah.
the day and things like that.
And
So
weird animals come out at nighttime.
Definitely,
I've recently
yeah.
discovered that. My first night dive was actually on this path liveaboard.
Okay, how is that?
I'm scared. I was scared. Jumping in, it's just black water,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But once you're in there, and if you're with a group of people, then the light from everybody's torches does illuminate it enough so that you're not just swimming in pitch black.
Yeah.
And there's the eels are out hunting.
Yes.
You see a lot of crab, shrimp.
If you turn your
lobster.
light off, everyone turns their light off. The sensory kind of impact it has on you is crazy, because everything else becomes heightened.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can hear so much. It's
And
amazing.
sound carries underwater far better than in air. So it's interesting.
Yes.
Where we were also had the bioluminescent, was it plankton? Some kind of organism in the water.
What we have in Matsu, right?
Right.
Not Matsu.
So
yeah,
if you
Matsu.
disturb it, then you can see them kind of
Yes.
blinking in the water, and that was magnificent. Everybody, we basically turned our torches off for just a second.
That's cool.
To see them, and it does have to be dark, and it's a bit scary, but the wonder then overtakes the fear.
You get used to it
You
as
do.
well.
You do.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
not that scary.
Yeah, a few years ago there was a school of phototactic fish in the harbour in Gongguan in Ludao, and it was kind of a similar thing. When you waved your torch around, they all lit up, and it was like fireworks.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Nature, you impressive. So, of all the places that you've lived and traveled for, maybe due to your work, you also cycle?
Yes, not to those places, but,
You
but
can't.
yeah.
We're on an island. That would be interesting. Also, a hobby that can be expensive, but how is it that you got into it?
I think it can be expensive, but I don't really
Doesn't have
have
to
any other expense.
Yeah.
Usually. So I think it can be expensive, but as long as you invest in a really good bike, it'll be fine.
Right.
a helmet.
Then it's really easy to maintain,
Yeah.
and or it has maintenance centers that you can go to, and a decent helmet.
Yeah.
And then I think that's basically your one expenditure.
Yes, I think maintenance of it is definitely expenditure, but I've tried my best to kind of learn how to maintain it myself.
As
It
we all should. We
Doesn't
should know how our
always
stuff
work out, but I think especially in Taiwan, just an amazing place to cycle. Yanminsan, just 20 minutes away.
The geography, the topography
topography of the land,
is really beautiful in Taiwan.
And sometimes brutal,
And-
which is good.
If you're cycling, yes, I can understand. The uphills can't be that enjoyable.
But I think Taiwan's kind of got it all. If you want flat and long, then you have that. You can go
Central
to
Plain,
you can go to like Keelung, and it's no problem at all. I think the bike paths along the riverside in Taipei are fantastic.
I love how the government actually took care of a lot of public health issues by providing these, parks and walkways and things.
I just wish that would spread to the whole city, but
True.
but I think it's a fantastic use of the area. Obviously, it's a floodplain as well, so it has an active role. I think I'm never looking for kind of perfection. We're looking to always improve. I think it can be improved, especially in the city. What you'll find is that traveling on a bike is much faster than the MRT, than car, than scooter, and I was about to say it's safer, but that's not true.
That's not entirely true, no.
But it is much faster. I think it needs to be more widespread. There's a load of things that the government can do to improve this, and I think in a way they are doing it, but it's just taking a long time, for sure. And I got accused the other day, actually, on Twitter. I've kind of been a European colonist, putting European ideas on Taiwan about road safety and things like that. I don't think it's a European idea to be safe on the road.
That should be a general human idea.
Exactly. And we have to remember that the car did come from Europe. It came from Germany. It is a European idea. It's not curtailing that. It's making the environment safer for everyone. And if we're coming from a cyclist point of view, obviously it's safer, less cars, but also from a pollution point of view.
Yeah.
I emit zero pollution at all.
Right.
So, we want our cities to be healthy environment, and I think that's a kind of way forward. What you'll find, though, is on Saturday and Sunday, the bikeways are rammed. They are rammed.
True.
So this idea of people not wanting to cycle because of the weather, I think, is a myth.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people are more than willing to do it as long as they have the tools to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
There are also city bikes here, which have been very well implemented, I think.
They're so successful, the U-bike system.
Right, the U-bike system here. And I do think that the culture here is really great in the way that they don't damage public property. They do respect it quite a bit. So then, and the U-bike app system and things ensure that everything is taken care of for the next person who wants to use the U-bike.
The link up with the Google Maps is great.
It's fantastic.
You can always find one,
It just makes it easy. You technically don't have to own your own bike at all.
Yeah. But what I would say is when you do on your own bike, you'll never go back to your bike. It's really difficult because your own bike, it's a lot lighter, it's a lot easier to get about. And
True,
that
the U-bikes are very heavy and clunky.
Taipei is a very safe city, so I leave my bike around all the time, and it's safe, it's fine. It also has a GPS in it, so if someone I'm dying for someone to take it,
right,
so you can
track
them,
it. Yeah. Have you circumnavigated Taiwan yet?
No, but the furthest I've gone is to Taichung.
That's pretty far.
Yeah, Taichung, yeah. But I've done all across the northeast coast, around Yanminshan, like up towards the most northern point.
Right.
And the weather just changed when I was there. It was crazy. It was like beautiful and sunny in Taipei, and when I was at the top, it was just miserable and cold. No. I've been to in around Yanminshan a lot to what's the famous beach called on the east coast? I can't remember. But towards Keelung. Fulong, to Fulong. What you'll find is that the distances that you can travel, if you don't want to go too far, what's going to happen is you can get very, very high very fast. So going to Fulong, for example, you have to go over a mountain. So the distance looks very short, but how much you actually travel is a lot, because the topography is just crazy. And the kind of hairpins working up the mountain are killers, absolute killers,
it's a challenge if you're looking to get really physically fit, get excellent cardio.
Definitely. Yeah, it's I remember on a lot of the trips I go with another cyclist from Malaysia who's a really, really good cyclist, and I'm behind him absolutely dying, just thinking, why did I choose this sport? Why? But it is rewarding, after especially you coming down the mountain. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
I did own a bike when in my younger years, and I've just only recently been using the U-bikes as you say. Maybe I should get my own.
Definitely.
Because I actually don't live very far from work. It's a very bikeable distance. Yeah. It's about 6 minutes by car. Exactly.
And how did you get here?
Right? By car.
Terrible.
I know,
terrible.
Right?
Yeah.
It's terrible. And,
but I get it. It's convenient.
It is.
I think it's really cheap to drive a car here. The price of gas is crazy.
It is.
Crazy cheap for
And,
an
you know,
advanced economy. I mean, people in the UK will be boiling over the price.
I'm pretty sure the government subsidizes it to a certain extent. They've got to be. How are they getting it this cheap?
Yeah. I mean, if we kind of take a step back from it, it does have a lot of implications for the environment, for health and things like that. I'm not trying to make you feel bad about it. We all use cars and stuff like
Absolutely.
that. But I think from the government point of view, there has to be kind of like a double-ended kind of way of dealing with this. So we want to reduce the amount of cars on the road, and then we can put more public transport on the road as well, which also helps the environment too. And so there has to be some compromise in this. And I mean, like, in terms of scooters, like 14 million scooters on the road for 23 million people is just...
That's a little nuts.
Is crazy. It's the highest density in the world, and there has to come a point where you go, does your household really need 7 scooters?
Yeah, that is apparently they have 7 scooters. Per
Yeah, there has to be some compromise, and it depends how much we actually care about the environment. And if we don't care about it, I think we should just be honest. And speaking as I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm an environmentalist, but a coral reef ecologist.
Right.
Be honest with the people and
Exactly.
say, this is what we're doing to trash the environment. This is how much we're willing to go to not do that. And if we can't start off locally, then I don't think it's going to work nationally or internationally.
Yes, very true.
Honest,
Yeah. Coming from the standpoint of loving to see healthy coral reefs and things, absolutely. I care quite a bit. And for those people who don't actually care terribly much about their environmental impact, at least your physical self, I think, can be improved by bicycling.
Yes.
Cycling is very good for you.
Yes, it's very good for you. I mean, you will feel the difference if you go to places like Taiwan and you cycle there. You'll feel the air quality is much better and things like that.
That is true. City air is
But I would say Taipei, well known to be a 15-minute city. It's an amazing way to get around. Definitely have to have eyes in the back of your head because it is a little bit dangerous. That's a totally different issue. But I think it's definitely something to take advantage of.
Absolutely.
When you're here.
Thanks for geeking out with me, Aziz.
Thank you.
And thanks, listeners, for tuning into Radio Taiwan International. I'm Michelle Chang, and I'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Geek Out.